So we actually took the deal. We sold our app on eBay, which is a pretty crazy story. Yo, what's up? It's Yoroomie and I'm back. So in this video, I actually want to talk about a startup that I started a few years ago called Yoroomie App. So I'll do a video sometime maybe talking about how I got the nickname Yoroomie, but I actually built and launched an app called Yoroomie App, which is the easiest way to find a roommate. That was kind of like our tagline. But a few years ago, I built and launched that with my team at ThinkBox. We were going to raise capital initially, maybe like a $1 to $2 million seed round on that, and planning to grow the company. But long story short, we actually didn't end up raising any money. We went through a potential acquisition process. That didn't really work out. Then we had 2 buyers, and then I said, you know what, like I need to find a forcing function to get someone to actually commit to buying it. Because we had a timeline, we were running out of time basically. So I actually put the app on eBay, or you could say the startup on eBay, and sold Yoroomie App through eBay. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So the whole kind of backstory to Yoroomie App was basically I was looking for a roommate at the time. This is kind of like in Venice Beach. And just really was like, hey, what's the best way to find a roommate, right? So there weren't really a lot of apps or anything out there that made it really easy to find someone that you could potentially trust and live with. There's of course like Craigslist, which is not a great place to find a roommate all the time. I actually got lucky finding a roommate there twice that I'm really good, 2 different times that I'm really good friends with now, both of them. But for the main part, there's really not an easy way to find a roommate. So long story short, I quickly kind of prototyped this app called Yoroomie App with my kind of core team at the time. So it's a CTO, designer, basically a back-end developer, and then me. And we kind of banded together and we were like, hey, we're gonna basically rapidly prototype this idea and build it in 30 days, launch it, and our goal at that time was to kind of obviously build a startup, right? So having said that, I've actually shared an article here in the past on just going from like idea to live app in 30 days. It's a pretty cool article. But we launched it initially and we actually leveraged Craigslist for some kind of like initial kind of growth tactics for that. But we focused on the west side of LA, and LA specifically for Yoroomie App. So, Yoroomie App was a marketplace. So basically it was dependent on people to post basically sign up for the app and say, hey, I have a place and I'm looking for a roommate, or I'm looking for a roommate and I don't have a place, but they were one side, right? So that might be like what's kind of like typically referred to as the supply. And the other side, we had to have people that would basically download the app, sign up and say, hey, I'm looking for a roommate also, right? So they're kind of the demand. So typically in marketplaces, they're kind of either supply constrained, category constrained. So that means basically, being very focused on one specific kind of vertical, and or kind of location constrained, right? So with Yoroomie App, we were definitely focusing on LA and just being the best way to find a roommate in LA because the market's quite large, right? So we use a lot of like pretty cool growth tactics for that too. Like I mentioned, like Craigslist. So we of course use Craigslist to kind of like growth hack it, so to speak. Quickly got like 1,000 users. It had quite a good engagement. So for every like 1,000 users, we had quite a few messages that were sent. I'll actually kind of screen share like a visual that we included in our initial kind of pitch deck for Yoroomie App that showed kind of some of the engagement. But basically we had an app that was working at the smallest scale here in LA. It was so early in the days of the app right there. We had great engagement, right? So we thought, hey, how do we really focus on increasing our user base and our engagement and just really improving the product? So we did some other kind of tactics, like we actually put these like app kind of download cards in very strategic places where we thought, hey, these are the right type of people that would use our app, would be like at Starbucks and they would see it. We put some kind of like pretty cool like taglines on that, like let's split rent, some kind of like catchy things. That way people would see it, it would kind of catch their eye, hopefully pick up the card, which is like kind of like a business card, and then hopefully they would download the app and use it, right? So that actually worked pretty effectively. Something else that we did was we put these cards and some of the coffee shops where we thought, or not where we thought, where we knew some of the investors and some of these venture capitalists in LA were they typically frequented. So that way they would see it and they might be like, hey, this might be like a new cool app I need to check out, right? So we did that because at the time we were actually going to raise like $1 million to maybe $2 million seed round. So we had a few meetings with some venture capitalists at the time, and then seed investors and angel investors and whatnot. So we had a few meetings. What we quickly found out was that this was a kind of a market that was going to be hard to monetize on, and we needed a large user base basically to be able to monetize, and we needed a large runway to be able to do that. Probably a large marketing budget for paid user acquisition. So we kind of thought about the time like, hey, what's a potential acquisition that we might want to go for? So we actually identified a few different startups here in LA, went through the process of reaching out to a few of them, had a few meetings with the startups. One in particular that's not actually around right now, but it was called RadPad. So they had raised like 22 million. I believe it was a little bit over 22 million at the time. Had a few meetings with their team, thought that might be a potential kind of exit for us early on if we didn't want to raise capital. Then we thought about, okay, what are some of our other options, right? So the RadPad acquisition didn't really work out, and we had two other options at the time with people that we had been speaking with. Now, one was a REIT, or real estate investment kind of trust fund, and what we did basically was in that conversation we identified, what's the value that we're going to add to them, what does the potential kind of acquisition actually look like. Long story short, in this process of still trying to continually operate, improve and scale Yoroomie App as an app, how to go through the whole process, which was quite exhaustive to figure out, is this a potential exit for us with this this REIT. We also had to try to figure out, if this doesn't work out, what are we going to do, right? So that way we're not putting our company in a bad position. Well, crazy enough, we actually had another kind of potential person or company that was interested in acquiring us. Long story short, it got into this kind of like time period where we needed a forcing function because just the conversations were kind of stalling out. And we didn't want to go from having options to having no options and running out of time and money. So what I actually did was, crazy enough, it was inspired by Justin Kan. So Justin Kan is the founder of Twitch. And prior to Twitch, he actually sold his startup on eBay. So I thought, this might be kind of like a PR stunt or something, but like I need a forcing function. I need a way to let more people know that we're going to be selling Yoroomie App, and I need the interested parties at the time to basically have a timeline to commit. So it was a huge risk for us, but basically I actually listed the startup on eBay. It got picked up by the press, so I'll actually show like a screenshot kind of here of someone saying that we're selling our app or our startup on eBay. But a long story short, through that time period of the auction, we got quite a bit of interest from other new kind of parties that were aware that we were going to be that we're selling our like startup, so to speak, on eBay. Actually, the real estate kind of trust company, they had a company in their portfolio that was basically a company for collegiate housing that was looking to actually kind of do this themselves. So long story short, they actually made kind of like a last minute offer, was able to close on that offer. It wasn't like an equity kind of blended offer or anything. It was simply like a cash, all cash on the table, kind of like immediate close offer and deal. So we actually took the deal. Looking back at it now, would I do that again? I don't think so. It was a it was a huge risk, but kind of to provide a little bit more on why we did that. We had this idea and that we took to live kind of product really quickly, got a lot of users that used it, they loved it. What we realized is, as a business, this is going to be a challenging business to not only run but continually scale and monetize, more importantly, right? So we needed to make revenue. So we didn't just want to be a company that raised like a Series A, Series B and never made revenue. So based off all the personal factors involved in that, that's not something we want to do. So we had to simply say, hey, how do we take what we've built and how do we then find a way to have an outcome? So in this case, it wasn't going to be through RadPad. The other kind of potential two potential acquirers that, we're interested, that we're in discussions with, no one would basically pull the trigger and close the deal. So we needed a forcing function. I was kind of out of options, so I just thought, I heard about the Justin Con thing with Twitch. Why not just kind of like try that? So it was a great outcome for us as a team, basically having kind of cash to split up amongst the team and extend our runway and be able to continually build and launch more startups after that. So if you have any questions about this, definitely comment below here. I'll try to answer them to the best I can and share as much as I can kind of about this. I'm not going to share, of course, exactly how much the acquisition or how much we sold it for was. That was kind of under an NDA at the time, and I don't feel comfortable saying that with everything right now. But it was a smaller amount. It wasn't life-changing. This wasn't like a huge financial windfall or anything. If it was, you probably see some cool cars back here and, in a dope house and everything. But it definitely made sense for us to take the deal at the time. It was a great outcome for everyone. So, it did work out, thankfully, and, hopefully, we can continually just kind of stacking up small wins, building, launching, and running kind of startups that generate revenue, or, in worst case, where it's not something that we want to continually run, how we can make sure it has a good outcome and someone can kind of take it over, we can financially benefit, and the kind of product can continue to live on. So if you have any questions, like I said, comment below here. Definitely hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and of course, we want more views on these, so that helps YouTube algorithm. Until next video, see ya.